Superintendent of Fauquier County Public Schools with another edition of One Hard Question. Um, the One Hard Questions started rolling in this week for some reason. It's interesting because up till now they were kind of trickling in, but we got a whole bunch this week, and there are some very good questions. So I'm going to archive some of those questions. There were questions about student discipline and the school quality survey. They're good questions, and I do want to answer them, but I'm gonna hang on to them and answer them as we go along. And that, by the way, any parent at any time can send me an email and ask me a question, and I'll answer it. I try to pick one hard questions that impact the greatest number of people. So here we go. This is the question from Bob, and Bob asks the following. Dr. Jeck, thank you for doing a fine job as superintendent. You're welcome. Thanks for the compliment. I keep hearing that our enrollment projections appear to remain flat. That seems counterintuitive given what appears to be hot spots of residential developments popping up around the county. I am curious as to the process you use to arrive at these projections. Thanks. Thanks for the question. It's a good question. It's one that comes up in different forms frequently. And the reason it comes up so much is because people see the rooftops popping up in Marshall, in Bealton, in Remington, and then the forecasted rooftops that are going to be popping up especially in Marshall with the Van Meter properties. They look at that and they just immediately assume, as is normal, that this is going to impact the school significantly, and there's tremendous growth coming. So, but we need to, when we project out, we got to have data, and the data comes from a couple different sources. We use a place called the Weldon Cooper Institute through the University of Virginia, and I don't have their web address, but if it's Weldon Cooper Institute, if you Google it, you'll probably find it. And they do a study and keep data about every community in the state of Virginia, and they look at growth, live births, etc., movement into the county, and they do enrollment projections out many years. So we have that data source. The other significant data source we have is work that we do in-house through our Janice Bourne, our Assistant Superintendent for Administration. She looks at all the housing developments on the books right now in Fauquier County, whether they're in the midst of construction or if they're on the books for construction later on, like the Van Meter property in Marshall. We look at all those. Her office looks at all that information, applies a formula based on, if there's 100 houses coming in, you can expect X number of students to come out of those 100 houses into our schools, and typically, those students are in grades K through 12. They're across 12 grades, and they will, impact to some extent the enrollment in the schools within their communities. So she takes that information, and that's all housing on the developments on the books. She applies that formula in terms of how many students you can expect from those houses, and then she juxtaposes that with the Weldon Cooper information, and we use that to arrive at our enrollment projections long range. And what we found is we're still flat. I mean, it is counterintuitive because you see this growth, but it still remains flat. And I guess there's some explanations for that. I think it has something to do with some of the larger subdivisions in the northern part of the county who have lots of high school age students who are, who ultimately are going to will graduate soon, and those houses within those communities, they're not being replaced with families with small children or high school age children for the most part. But that's just kind of an assumption there that I'm making. I don't know that for a fact, but anyway, what we do know for a fact is what the Weldon Cooper Institute shows, what we know is coming in terms of development, and then the formula we apply in terms of how many students we can expect, and it shows that our enrollment's going to be flat. And kind of is what it is. I think it's typical for folks, myself included, to look at this. I live in Marshall, so look at these developments and go, "Oh my goodness, we're going to have all these kids coming into our schools." Well, maybe not. Maybe not so much, because maybe in another part of the county we have a dwindling enrollment. But that's the answer to the question. I know it's a little bit convoluted, but I can say this: we've been using this sort of formula now since I've been here. It's my 4th year. We've been using this formula now for 3 years now, and we've been on the money. We've been on the money in terms of our enrollment projections, our growth projections, and how we build our budget, because we build our budget based on enrollment, and we have been on the money. So I hope that answers your question. It's a very good question, and I look forward to answering the other questions that have been submitted. They are very good, and please keep the questions coming.